Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
Gibson's defense team grills the case's lead investigator.
Miss World visits storm-ravaged Abaco. The BPL chairman says no promises over power outages. Plus, the Great Abaco Classic headed to Bahama.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. As the trial of former Cabinet Minister Shane Gibson continued in the Supreme Court today, the lead investigator in the case acknowledged that star witness Jonathan Ash's original statement was altered. Despite the adjustment, she admitted she didn't change the date on the statement to reflect the change. Jared Higgs has more.
The case's lead investigator, ASP Deborah Thompson, was back on the stand on Wednesday, where she spent most of the day answering questions from Gibson's defense team. Thompson was questioned about adjustments made to star witness Jonathan Ash's statement. Thompson testified that she interviewed Ash on June 28th in the presence of then Deputy Commissioner of Police Anthony Ferguson and Ash's attorneys Alicia Bowe and James Thompson. Thompson told the court that she made comprehensive notes during that meeting and typed up a statement later the same day. She says Ash signed the statement on June 30th with his attorneys present. Fast forward to September, and Thompson says there was another meeting with Ash and his attorney where changes were made to his original statement. That change was Ash saying that Deborah Bastian told him in order to be paid, he would have to forego a payment. Gibson's attorney, Keith Knight, asked Thompson why the altered statement was still dated June 28th after changes were made during the September meeting. Thompson replied that she kept the date because the alterations were minor. Thompson was then asked if it could mislead the defense if the June statement had indeed been made in September, to which the investigator agreed. Thompson was then asked if the word forego was an important part of the case, to which she also agreed. When asked if she was changing her story, she stated that she still viewed the alteration as minor. Earlier in the day, Thompson was grilled concerning an affidavit she signed back on June 4, 2017. That affidavit had to do with an investigation into funds on Jonathan Ash's bank account. Knight questioned whether Thompson was leading an investigation into whether the funds on Ash's bank account were obtained fraudulently, as was the wording of the affidavit. Thompson replied that she was only leading an investigation into the funds and not whether they were obtained fraudulently. Knight then pressed Thompson on the disparity, to which she replied that she didn't draft the affidavit and that the Attorney General's office was responsible for its wording. When asked if the document was therefore false, Thompson said it was true to the best of her knowledge and she wouldn't have used the word fraudulent. When asked whether she was leading an investigation into whether the funds were lawfully obtained, Thompson replied yes. She was then asked about whether a freezing order was placed on Ash's bank account before it was determined whether the funds were obtained lawfully, to which she replied yes. Thompson was then asked whether she knew that the freezing order was discharged in September of 2019, to which Thompson replied, "No, I'm not aware." Ash's immunity agreement was another topic of questioning, with Thompson acknowledging that she was aware that an agreement was in place. When asked if she knew about the agreement at the time of taking Ash's statement, Thompson says she was aware of discussions, but not a finalized agreement. The trial continues on Thursday. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
No one can predict blackouts. That was Bahamas Power and Light CEO Donovan Moxey's response to questions on whether the days of power outages will be behind BPL customers once the Wardzilla plant is up and running next month. He spoke with Jillian Gray.
After a summer of power generation issues, BPL Chairman Donovan Moxey said he can't offer any promises on if the new Wardzilla power plant will resolve those issues.
I mean, no one can predict blackouts. Obviously, there are certain events that happen that we have no control over, which people call force majeure events. So I know from BPL's perspective, we are committed to providing consistent power throughout. And as part of our generation strategy, this is phase one with Station A. And so from our perspective, we're looking to turn the corner with respect to having reliable generation. Now, obviously, you have a very complex network that you have to work with. You have other things you don't plan on that may affect your network. And so I can't predict that. All I can predict or tell you is that as BPL, we will work as hard as we possibly can to restore power in the event that there's ever any unforeseen circumstance.
Last week, Bahamas Electrical Workers Union President Paul Maynard said if the upcoming upcoming holiday season is not cool, blackouts would likely continue. However, Moxie shot down those comments.
Union president does not speak for the executives of the organization, and so whatever he says to the press, that's between him and the press. So that's where that sits.
Finnish technology group Wärtsilä was slated to complete the new 132-megawatt power plant by the end of summer. However, the date for that $95 million plant was pushed back to the end of the year, a deadline Moxie said he's sure they'll meet.
I visited the plant yesterday, and they've made significant progress. And so we are on schedule to open that plant December 15th. So that's in about 30 days.
The company is currently testing the facility to ensure it meets the new deadline. Moxie added that once the plant is up and running, the switch to heavy fuel oil will offset costs to consumers. However, be warned, BPL will be tacking on a new fee to consumers through the new rate reduction bond, which seeks to reduce the power company's $321 million legacy debt.
When you look at the reduction in cost due to the switching of the fuel that we're using, much more high efficiency engines, that net cost to consumer from our perspective, we're working hard to actually have that be extremely low or essentially nothing at all in terms of the impact.
The added cost will be outlined on the consumer's bill once this change takes effect next year. Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Over 90 illegal migrants were taken into custody by Defense Force and Police Force officers on the island of Managua last night. According to reports, just after 9 p.m., officers of Operation Turks and Caicos, while on routine patrol near the southern end of Managua, discovered a 30-foot wooden vessel with 10 people on board. Upon checking the coastline and nearby bushes, officers found 80 more individuals believed to be Haitian nationals. The migrants were taken to Matthew Town in Managua and handed over to immigration officials for further processing. Well, the long road to recovery continues in Abaco, which was devastated in September by Hurricane Dorian. Over on Green Turtle Key, the hum of generators has become the small key soundtrack, while all that remains of some of the homes is foundation. Georgia Bain reports.
This is a new reality, a new norm for Abaconians.
The last 2.5 months haven't been easy for Abaconians, says Administrator for North and Central Abaco, Therese Boodle Lang, who revealed that bodies have been discovered during massive cleanup efforts.
There has been discoveries of bodies, even up to recently, and we expected that because of what happened there and the height of the surge and the veracity of what happened there. And so we know that closure is going to be hard to come.
As we drove through Green Turtle Key, the level of devastation was evident. There were downed power lines, collapsed roofs, and piles of debris everywhere we went as the hum of generators filled the air. Boodle Lang noted that residents of the devastated areas are still relying on generators, but it's far worse for those who lost their homes.
The level of devastation in Marsh Harbour and Treasure Key in particular, it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while. There has been restoration of services, in particular in North Abaco and South Abaco, with controlled water being turned on, as well as electricity restoration.
Miss World 2018 Vanessa Ponce and Miss World Bahamas 2019 Naya Bandelaire quickly traded in their heels for tennis shoes as the plane landed at the Leonard M. Thompson International Airport. The queens were chauffeured by police officers through Marsh Harbour to board a ferry to Green Turtle Key. After a bumpy ride due to weather conditions, the queens then boarded a golf cart headed to the Amy Roberts School, where 24 children who remained on the quay are still attending classes.
Loving our nature splendor, to God we must surrender. Education for all, my body and soul, and me Roberts Green Turtle Key.
Speaking with the students, Miss World asked what they remembered from the devastating storm.
I was here during the hurricane. This was one of the shelters, and you had to pass through there. It was pretty cold, but the water was up to your knee, and in here it was like up to your ankle. Wow. And the roof was leaking.
After leaving Green Turtle Key, the queens were brought back to the mainland. Miss World said that the island has changed quite a bit since her last visit.
I came here like 7 years ago, and first of all, it doesn't look like the same place that I've been. I came here on vacation, and everything was just organized and in its right place. I mean, it's still beautiful because you still have the beautiful sea, the weather and everything, but it hurts deeply to see the houses destroyed. It hurts to see downtown like that, and it hurts to see people not smiling.
Miss World Bahamas fought back tears as she recalled the first time she visited the island following the hurricane.
The first time I came here, I honestly started to cry. and probably talking about it now I may cry, but I guess being in this situation, you don't want to see nothing like that happen to people in your own community or in your own country. Even having family that live here, because I do have family that were on the affected islands, it was just so devastating to know that they had to go through that. And seeing that damage, I know it's going to take years on top of years.
The Miss World organization and the Miss World Bahamas organization have planned several fundraisers to aid in the recovery efforts.
The Starlight Global event is on Thursday evening, and that's going to be held at Albany. And it's a by invitation only event. Werner Gruner, who is the head of the Starlight Global Foundation, has invited some of his friends to come in and hopefully dig deep in their pockets to give. And we're hoping to raise quite a bit of money at that event. And then the public event, the one that's open to the general public, is on Friday evening at Sapodilla.
Reporting for our News, I'm Giorgio Bain.
Meanwhile, over on Grand Bahama, Tourism and Aviation Minister Dionisio de Aguilar says the international airport's owners simply got tired of dealing with the facility after it was extensively damaged by Hurricane Dorian. He said informal discussions have begun for the possible purchase of the airport by the government.
They've invested a lot of money and unfortunately been significantly impacted by numerous hurricanes. So they're a little wary of it, they're tired of it. And so I think they probably reached the point where they would consider, exiting that business, and the natural acquirer of that airport would be the government.
The aviation minister told our news that after dealing with an airport that was repeatedly damaged by successive hurricanes, the Grand Bahama Port Authority and Hutchison Port Holdings won out. Grand Bahama International Airport was ripped to shreds when Hurricane Dorian slammed into that island in early September. Port Authority President Ian Roll said they are having high-level talks with the government regarding the potential sale of the airport. De Aguilar said what government doesn't want is to take on more than it can handle with it.
We're in the process of sort of thinking through the acquisition. How would it work? How would we make it work? Because ultimately we don't want to take on an airport and then create another massive burden to the state. So we're trying to think through the business model to limit its impact.
According to De Aguilar, repairs could cost up to $40 million. However, he added no price tag or timeline has been settled on because formal talks have yet to begin.
We're trying to keep the entire transaction as confidential as possible because, you're in the negotiation stages, and so you don't want to negotiate it in the press. And while there be maybe a yearning for like, how's it going, how much time, what cost, what time period, all of that has not been concretized yet. And so we're going to be seeming somewhat deflective, but we're sort of in that negotiation stage or that thinking stage on how would this work.
Still to come, Ragged Island to get a solar grid next year. The details after this break.